Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. My name is Marie-Ève Jean. I'm Vice President at Invest Quebec, which is a state organization in Quebec, Canada. So today I'm happy to be with 4 speakers, both from Canada and the United States. Our topic is water as a tool for resilience and climate change transition. So maybe I'd just like to do a quick tour of the guests that I have with us this afternoon. So maybe we start with you, Jeffrey.
Hi.
C'est bon. It's good.
You can hear me? Oh, there we go. My name is Jeff Epstein. I'm the Chief of Integrated Development for the City of Cleveland, working for our Mayor, Justin Bibb. I oversee our economic and community development and planning activity in the city, do a lot of work on waterfront redevelopment and water-related economic development.
Thank you.
I'm Mitch Reynolds. I'm the mayor of La Crosse, Wisconsin in the U.S. And I'm also the co-chair of Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative. It's a cooperative, collaborative organization that represents 105 mayors and cities up and down the Mississippi River from Bemidji, Minnesota to New Orleans, Louisiana. And we work together to advocate for the health of the Mississippi River corridor in multiple ways, including water quality.
Very good.
Hello, everyone. My name is Martin Bureau. I'm Vice President Innovation at Ultra. We're a site remediation and water solution specialist. We focus on specific niche technologies for preserving and protecting our water and treating it. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
I am Stéphanie Vaillancourt, President for Canada for Atkins Realis. Atkins Realis is a global engineering firm with more than 37,000 people. Water is one of our markets.
Thank you. So like I mentioned, today we'd like to discuss on how water resilience and how can we build a comprehensive approach to it to adapt to climate change, which include engineering services with Atkins Realis being here, technology with Ultra being here, and also with definitely proactive approach from local leaders. So we're very happy to have both of you here. So maybe first question would be to our city representative. So what are the specific climate-related risks do you need to address when you run a city like La Crosse or Wisconsin? So what are the main climate-related risks do we need to address? Maybe let's start globally and then go down to water resilience.
So lots of risks to think about when we think about water. We're a city on a Great Lake. Great Lake Erie is one of the Great Lakes, which is about 21% of the global fresh water supply. Lake Erie is about 2% of that. Our drinking water, all our water for our region comes from Lake Erie. We're also on the Cuyahoga River, so preserving and retaining that incredible asset is a big challenge in terms of quality. We have had in recent years lots of issues with water quality, algal bloom runoffs from farming in the area, which have caused water quality issues for drinking as well as for recreation in the lake. We also have a lot of shoreline in our city with many issues around erosion. We've been really working to try to tackle those issues of erosion, as well as along our river. We have miles and miles and miles of failing bulkhead. All of those are issues we're dealing with around water climate issues.
What about you, Mayor Reynolds?
One of the things that we experience on the Mississippi River and how we're impacted by climate change is well, it's flooding and drought. Those are the key things. And so one of the things that we've done at MRCTI is work on natural infrastructure projects to help mitigate some of the impacts of both flooding and drought. And this is beneficial for all of the rivers along the Mississippi River because it is one corridor. It's one economic corridor as well. And so anything that happens at the mouth of the river impacts what happens up in my neck of the woods in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So we work collaboratively and we're working on a project with our partner Ducks Unlimited to deploy multiple natural infrastructure projects up and down the Mississippi River corridor to do a number of different things. And, we're talking about 100,000. We announced at COP28 that we're up to 100,000 acres of natural infrastructure projects that we're getting ready to deploy with the help of Ducks Unlimited, which will not only help with resiliency in our cities, in relation to flood mitigation and drought resilience, but also impact water quality as well, improve water quality for all the cities. We got 20 million people along the Mississippi River that get their drinking water from the river. And that's a significant number. And so we have to address water quality with these natural infrastructure projects. At the same time, we're also sequestering 230,000 tons of carbon with those same natural infrastructure projects. But what these do, and again, these are projects that help with resilience in our cities because of the impacts that flood and drought have on the economic well-being in our cities, the social well-being in our cities. But also helps us address some of the issues that impact the global commodity supply chain. And I can go on and on about this, but I'm gonna just make it short. The Mississippi River Basin feeds 40% of the planet. And so anytime that we've got a snarled barge on the Mississippi River because of drought, because we can't get the barges up and down the river, we have a risk to the global commodity supply chain. So this is one of the things that we're trying to address with our natural infrastructure projects.
So big social and economical impact to it, to water resilience. So maybe, Martin, on your side, would like to hear about your views a little bit. How vulnerable is our current water infrastructure in North America, in Canada? Can you give us an overview in your point? So working with many cities in Canada, in the US, what are the stats? So where are we?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. And the statistics are amazing. I'll start with one. The American Water Works Association made an estimation that our water systems, Canada and the US combined, are essentially past its design life. 50% is beyond 75 years old. There are pipes. The mayor of Regina earlier today quoted that they found recently pipes of 112 years old. And we replaced in Ottawa a wooden water main not so far ago. So it's definitely something, a network that needs help. And it depends on the geography. It depends on, of course, the materials that were used. It depends on the local realities of, for example, being close to water or not. Climate is a huge impact. Droughts, of course, and droughts turn into water main breaks. It's kind of something that people don't expect. But an example in Houston, they've got that clay soil that tends to swell and contract depending on the water level. And in a single day in July 2022, they had 1,000 water main breaks. So that day, all their budget for maintenance, all asset management went to hell because they've got the situation that they need to fix. On the other hand, you have the example of Jackson City with their flooding, and they lost their network for more than a month because of lack of power and then lack of pressure and then breakage in the system. So the impact in communities that are less favorized in general is enormous. To tell you the size of the problem we're facing, that's a number for the American Water Works Association, but I believe it includes Canada as well. In 2020, which was a real year, COVID didn't hit that much for infrastructures. We changed 0.1% or 0.12% of the water mains in North America, far from the 1 to 2% that we're targeting. One being 100 years replacement rate, 2 being 50, and the gap between 0.12 and 2% is 188,000 miles of water mains. There's not enough cast iron or ductile iron. There's not enough, not cast, it's not used anymore, but ductile iron, PVC, manpower, contractors, and time in a year to do that. So not only is it vulnerable, but we need new solutions to deal with it.
So we need major investment and also solution. That's
it.
Maybe Stephanie, you also work obviously with Atkins Realis. You work not only Canada, US, but worldwide. So I'd like to hear a little bit about you too. So in your view, what is the impact of climate change on water resilience? And what is the importance of water resilience when we're gonna have to go through so many changes in the coming years?
So I like the question more global. You know, from a global basis, when you think about global resilience, is that climate change has a real impact not only on water, but on demographic. You know, because additional flood, additional rainfall, people are moving. So if people are moving and there's an impact on agriculture, that can put a lot of pressure on the water system. So that is, for me, the water is really at the heart of energy, agriculture. So there's a big link between the three. So when we think about a community outside of North America, that, you know, there's still 26% of people that don't have access to water today. How can, for me, one of the priorities that how can we accelerate that? And we need to make sure that we have a resilient plan that is a very comprehensive plan that take into account, but that takes time to do it. So I think we are really at the inflection point at the journey to say, how can we use better technology? How can we use like intelligent AI, sorry for my English, AI to be much quicker. Us at AtkinsRéalis, we just did a project with the collaboration of the UK government and Nepal, and we're able to develop a real system in 2-3 months. It used to take us 3 to 4 years to do it. So with climate change, we'll have to be much quicker because that would have an impact on the infrastructure, even probably North America.
Thank you. I'd like to go back maybe in a little bit more details about social impact and hear it also from our city representative. So, and how can we ensure equitable access to reliable water supply? So maybe I guess that's also an important question. So Stephanie, you mentioned it. So I guess in your point of view, Mayor, I guess Mayor Reynolds also big of importance to you, I guess.
Sure, and I'm glad you mentioned access to water because among the people that have limited access to a reliable, clean drinking water source are those who live in the United States of America in the Mississippi River Delta. And one of the reasons that we do what we do, MRCTI, is to address the needs of those who live, especially in the Delta of the Mississippi River, because there is a disparate economic impact of not having access to clean water. I mean, and this is one of the things that we're trying to address in an equitable way by really focusing on stabilizing the Mississippi River in a way to make certain that there's a stable water supply for those people, but also to, there's the other part of water is wastewater. And we have, when we experience flood events, and this has happened to multiple cities up and down the Mississippi River, when we have flood events, that can significantly impact wastewater treatment plants. And we have communities. In fact, I'm here with one of our mayors from Greenville, Mississippi at COP28, and his community has suffered significantly from flooding to the extent that they have such tremendous damage to their wastewater treatment facilities that it's unaffordable to make the improvements to help his community. So, and we, sometimes we forget, and what is that term for when the drought makes your pipes break? What's that called?
What, swelling? No.
Swelling? What is it? Subsidence. Subsidence. There we go. That's what it is. That's what it is. We have in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, not that long ago, that community suffered one of those incidents where their water main collapsed just for that very thing, because the drought dried the soil out, and the water main collapsed, and it caused this absolute crisis in that community for multiple days. And that happens up and down the Mississippi River. And that happens anytime there's, the flooding and the drought impacts. We're always putting not only our clean water supplies at risk, but we're also impacting how wastewater. And both are critical, one might say, in relation to what our expectations are for our citizens living in the U.S. So I think that when we look at our efforts in working cooperatively to make sure that we have a stable Mississippi River, we're not only thinking about resilience efforts, we're not only thinking about climate mitigation or mitigation in multiple ways, but we're also looking through the equity lens to make sure that the people that are living primarily, again, in the Mississippi River Delta have equal access or equitable access to clean water and sanitary sewer services.
Same for you, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I agree with everything the mayor said. I'll just build on that a little bit. Lake Erie, with the severe flooding we're having, our wastewater sewers, combined sewer overflow goes out into the lake near our water intake, which adds tremendous cost and burden, and that, then benefits, or not benefits, but harms the low-income residents in our community. And to build on the kind of the costs of ensuring that aging infrastructure can survive climate change. Our sewer district, regional sewer district, has incurred massive costs. They're passing it on to consumers, disproportionately impacting low-income residents in our communities. And when we've got pipes bursting, this kind of things, is one of the largest low-income cities in the United States, impacts our residents disproportionately. I wanted to hit a little bit on the technology point as well. I think one of the things we've been working on in Cleveland is using Lake Erie as a digital smart lake test bed. So we have deployed sensors throughout the lake, in buoys and along the lake shore, about $10 million to kind of outfit that in infrastructure. And Martin and I were talking a little bit earlier, they've taken advantage of some of that, but allowing businesses from around the world to come and kind of test some of their water sensor technology in real world conditions in Lake Erie. And we've been using that to track, it's things like impacts on fish populations of climate change, E. coli for swimming on our beaches, and our water supply in the lake. So that's another piece of what we're doing in Cleveland.
It's easier to improve when you have data, when you know, it's easier to improve. So maybe Stephanie, moving on to solutions, I guess also on your side, how would you say we can improve the resilience of our water infrastructure in the face of this climate? So what are the solutions?
So us at Atkins Realis, we're looking at two really different solutions, nature-based solutions. So we are very looking at it because in every plan we have, it's always focusing on nature-based solution. Technology, I think you have almost like a digital twins. I think technology needs to be part of the solution. And the solution also needs to be managed with all the stakeholders. And sometimes it's a challenge because, if you don't think about agriculture. Hopefully there's a lot of French speaking here. If you think about it, they are like using 70% of the water and probably providing 30% of the waste. So for us, when we think about the solution, we are trying to think about all the ecosystem, but I would say nature-based and using technology is the key in the future.
Maybe Martin, on your side, so does technology exist? What are the solutions?
There's technology.
Well, definitely, I'm a little biased there. Technology do exist, and it makes me think of the genome. When we were trying to crack the code of the genome, we thought that, and that was in the middle of the 90s, we thought it would take until 2012 or 15, I'm not too sure about the year, and 2 years after, we had the code. Okay, so of course, it's going to take some effort, and of course, it's going to cost a lot, but so we will come with synergistic solutions in the future, rapidly and more cost effectively than what we think, because the plans we're making today are with the solutions that people that make those plans know. And well, they don't know everything and they don't know the new stuff. So definitely solutions with AI, solution with new materials, solution with new approaches using nature, asset management, simple, good common sense management plans where you think about the vulnerabilities instead of the obvious urgency that comes, on a day that forces you to move your plan and forget about it.
And then I guess, but solution exists, okay, and then it needs financing, right? So maybe coming back to local leaders, so right, in the city view, so how can you invest? Is it possible to give the topic the amount of money that is needed? I guess that's the question. Maybe we start with you, Jeffrey, maybe.
Short answer is no. I mean, I think it's and ultimately it's who bears the cost, right? I think I'm grateful that the federal government has made so much money available through the IIJA, but really it's not enough. And as we look at all the different taxing jurisdictions and entities here, we've got to get creative with different ways we can ensure that we are investing in the public infrastructure and the clean technologies needed to secure our water and secure our lake. I think that's some of why we've invested so heavily on this digital lake smart bed and of kind of water economy, of trying to bring some of those technologies to Cleveland so we can identify the technologies, and then it's a matter of finding a way to pay for them.
What about you, Mayor?
I mean, there's not nearly enough resources, and I mentioned my fellow mayor, Eric Simmons, who's with me here from Greenville, Mississippi, and he'll talk about this, about the amount of work that needs to be done in his community. It's a community that's 80% African-American, 38% poverty rate. And your choice in relation to improving, whether it be your wastewater or water, is to increase your water or wastewater rates so that your consumers foot the bill to make sure that they have clean water and they have access to sanitary sewer. And frankly, the cost is extraordinary in some of our communities, considering the work that needs to be done. And so, again, I, like Jeffrey, really happy our federal government has stepped into the breach to help us secure funding in certain ways, in certain through certain programs to help us address that. But it's not even close to being enough. And there's barriers to actually getting to those funds in the first place, just in terms of applying for them and successfully gaining them, and then reporting on them and all the other things that go along with that. So there's any number of challenges. Not only that, they come with local matching dollars. So if it's an 80-20 grant, a city, again, like Greenville, Mississippi, which has an extremely high poverty rate, where are they getting those funds from? They're getting them from their ratepayers. And the ratepayers, as Mayor Simmons would like to say, their ratepayers will have to decide, are they going to pay their sewer and water bill, or are they going to buy food? Yeah. And that's not equitable, and that's not fair, and that's not just. And that's something that we could address with more resources, but because we're not even close to where we need to be right now. I mean, one of the things that we, again, this is why we work, and this is a model, by the way, we think, for the rest of the world, why we work collaboratively on a quarter-wide basis with all these mayors, 105 mayors, bipartisan mayors up and down the Mississippi River. The reason why we work in this way is so that we can help address all of the needs of all of the people up and down the Mississippi River corridor, so we can not only be more sustainable, resilient, and then make certain that we're protecting the global commodity supply chain, but also because I've got more resources than Mayor Simmons has in Greenville, Mississippi. The people in Minnesota have more resources than folks do in the Delta. The people in Iowa have more resources, but we are all impacted by the resources that others do not have. And so that's why, again, we don't talk a ton about cooperation and collaboration. We haven't so far, but that is an essential part of that. Technology, important. Resources, important. Working collaboratively, cooperatively, that is essential.
Very interesting. Maybe Martin, when you discuss those large projects, how do you discuss the cost benefit situation when you talk with cities, communities about doing projects? So what is the discussion about cost and benefits?
Well, what the case we're trying to make is that when cities evaluate a project, it does not account, generally speaking, for the value of the technology or the solution provided, but more the costs. And there's a strong difference because the way I'm saying it, cost would be the simple dollar amount for performing the work as per the spec in the RFP. Now, that does not take into account maintenance, life cycle, life duration. It does not take into account social benefits, disturbance to communities, the effects that you referred to, Mayor Reynolds, environmental benefits in particular. Give you an example, of course, using our technology, I have my numbers in mind. A project would last for relining a street, something in the order of 4 weeks for a single block. The same project out of open cut would be 16 weeks. So translated into social impacts, the largest business street in Montreal City, Quebec, is is St.
Catherine.
Voilà. Thank you. And it's been in construction for like 2 years now. The number of bankruptcy on the street is amazing. Okay, so people, can't pay their bill or their taxes. They go out of business, and so that impacts everyone, like you and me. So there's a lot of other benefits that need to be accounted for. And coming to your point, if I may, the private sector can play a role. We in California did a project where we are working with the engineering firm, the city, of course, we as a contractor, and also as an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer, the union, because actually in this case, the union is the contractor who performs the work. So we train the union as a licensee, literally like a private entity, to make that project work. So everyone benefits. There's a lot of things that we can invent, and that's what they call, I guess, social innovation, not only technology, technological innovation.
Maybe Stephanie, on your side, again, you work on many different places in the world. Do you see this will to work together to share, to have collaboration between all the stakeholders? Do you see it too?
The challenge you have sometimes, and I just take North America, is that, for example, you have the energy that is federal and water is more at the municipality level. So sometimes but this is one ecosystem. So for me, that is kind of the challenge, is that how can you have all the stakeholders that usually have money coming from different sources? So it's difficult to align. So for me, that is a real challenge. What Martin said, what we do is what we work with client. I fully agree that selecting a project needs to think more about social. What is the social value? What is the social impact? And I think that was, I would say, significant progress over the last 2-3 years. You see more projects coming, in the US, you have a lot about minority project, but I think that needs to be at the heart of selecting a project. But working all the stakeholder, and the stakeholder, when you think about water, the water is the heart for me on almost everything. If you have cybersecurity on water, it's probably the worst. So that needs to be integrated as part of the solution.
So you need to bring everybody on board. So maybe you mentioned, Mayor Reynolds, a couple of times the collaboration you have along Mississippi River, but was it difficult to bring everybody on board? Is it part of the game to be working together?
Yeah, it's funny because all of our mayors feel very good about the cooperative organization, and they do appreciate what we're able to do together. We've been able to have some significant positive impacts in many of our communities that have been hit by impacts of flood and drought. I do want to, Martin talked about private cooperation or private partnerships. I mentioned the natural infrastructure we're deploying up and down the Mississippi River. One of the, this is infrastructure that is just like any built infrastructure, traditional built infrastructure. It potentially will suffer damages in the case of a significant flood or a significant drought. And one of the organizations that we're working with, one of the businesses we're working with, is the largest reinsurance company in the world, Munich Re, to look at how we can protect those resources fiscally and do it in an innovative way through a parametric insurance facility, so that we can again protect these resources, but do it in a way that's innovative enough so that the communities being impacted aren't actually paying into the premiums. So in a parametric facility, we'll get immediate payments based on a trigger event, but there won't be the extensive cost, and that will happen right away to get people back to work right away in their communities, to address damage right away in their communities, as well as well, I mean, again, do it very quickly, but do it in a way so that the upfront cost, the premium cost, is not something that is borne on the backs of those actually the cities that are being impacted. So it's incredibly creative and innovative, and Munich Reinsurance is doing incredible work with us to help get us there. So there is I just want to make sure that we understand that, you know, we're all thinking about this in a collaborative way. You know, we're all thinking about this in private-public partnerships and in subnational partnerships. We're all thinking about it that way, and our mayors they're all leaning in. They're fully invested in this type of cooperative partnership. So yeah, there's a great deal of appetite for it, and we'll continue this work. And I think we're doing great work.
Yeah, great.
Maybe I'll just add, I think it's a great idea to involve insurer, because right now with all the catastrophe, they won't be able to pay. People won't be able to get insurance. So how can they help us build resilient infrastructure? So I think they need to be part of the solution.
Great.
Yeah, I was going to add on a slightly different example of collaboration around resilient green infrastructure on coastlines. You know, we've had significant issues of private property owners up against our coastlines with erosion, substantial erosion, and inability to pay for the infrastructure needed to do that. And so we've had a few innovative examples to our neighbor to the east in Euclid, Ohio, where they have negotiated with those private property owners public access rights along the lakefront in exchange for improving and stabilizing the hillside down to the lake. So an interesting kind of trade-off there to kind of create infrastructure and gain public access where we haven't had public access. Similarly, doing a lot of work and study along our Cuyahoga riverfront. And I'm curious, Mayor, some of the public infrastructure work you're doing along your river, but really thinking about it, how do we work collaboratively? I think at least 60% of the bulkhead along our river is privately owned. The majority of it is failing. You know, how do we think collaboratively about keeping the river from kind of falling in? We've spent millions and millions of dollars on a major project where we have a public housing facility up on a hill over the river. The hillside is failing. It's a federal shipping channel through the river. We've had to raise in excess of $60 million to kind of stabilize that hillside. And we're ultimately going to put a 50-acre public park in once we stabilize that hillside. But the amount of lift that it requires to tackle these challenges in communities that, like La Crosse, I'm sure, are legacy industrial cities that have you know, 150-year-old infrastructure that is failing, and the costs of that are so massive. And you know, I think the amount of collaboration that is required to solve just pieces of these challenges is just enormous.
So it's really a global challenge on so many levels. So maybe a little bit about looking at the vision, more the long term of it. So it's maybe just Stephanie, how do you see? You also work with many cities. So how do you see this whole topic being integrated in long-term vision to really in long-term planning, decision-making process on your side? How do you see it? Is it now in everybody's mind that this needs to be integrated in long-term planning?
I think yes, but of course there's bigger city and smaller city, and everyone is impacted by water. So for me, you know, like we mentioned at the beginning, infrastructuring and aging. So that is a real challenge. So I think every city needs to have a clear, resilient plan. They need to work not just about the water. They need to have a vision that is much, much more than just the water. They need to integrate energy, agriculture. They need to be integrated with all the stakeholders. I think it was a good point, you know, people living to the lake, they have something to do. Everyone needs to be involved. So I think the priority is to have a resilient plan. Everyone needs to have a resilient plan and have a clear plan where to go. Technology, AI will reduce costs, and I think investment are necessary.
Maybe Martin, so you also work with many cities that have used your technology to leverage existing infrastructure they have, but bringing to the next level, ensuring this water resilience. So maybe how do you see it also being integrated in long-term planning in terms of?
Well, we've worked with more than 350 cities so far with our lining technology, with which renews water mains from within using trenchless technologies instead of digging streets for the benefits of the context of the discussion here. Let me take the example of Toronto. Toronto is one of the largest, if not the largest, market for water main lining in the world, and they have come up in the last 5 years with a real extremely impressive and comprehensive asset management plan. They work with engineering firms. They work with academia. They also work with us, contractors and OEM, consult with us that what's possible, when is it possible. They have set standards for some technical, specs that they want us to improve. Can you do that by this year? So they're happy with the product, but they know it could be improved. So we're shooting for that. 2025, can you do it? That kind of thing. And they talk to everyone, not only us, obviously. And then they've done modeling, identifying vulnerabilities in their network, and tried to work. And they're actually integrating AI to understand where it's going to break or where are the problems, which is quite impressive, I must say. And then they have set like very long-term goals and target. And what impresses me, and I mean, Toronto, I'm sure other cities do the same, but they seem to be very advanced in that field. They have identified what are the mode of failure in 50 years, in 75 years. What's gonna go wrong? How do I prepare for that? And that's quite impressive. And me as a material science specialist, I have some expertise, and we've contributed to that, and other experts as well. And that is, and then they feed that to their models. It's pretty impressive, and that leads to prioritization of their work instead of urgency management on a daily basis, because and I don't know their success rate, but it's high, so they know what to expect and when. And well, I've talked about that, but collaborations is a key to that. If they did that on their own, not talking to us, well, it wouldn't work. I can and they work with engineering firms, of course, to feed that, which is great. And the payback is definitely, I believe, very large for them.
Very good. In Cleveland, are you also able to integrate this topic in long-term planning of water resilience, climate resilience? Are you able to integrate it?
Yeah, but I think we have to, and as I think as we look at the long-term planning that we're doing, not just around the health of our lake and our waterways, but around development and redevelopment in the city, and thinking about implementing green infrastructure technologies there, as we're thinking about leveraging the power of our academic institutions that are very strong on sensor technologies, and deploying those along our lake and throughout our region. I think it's critical that we think holistically about water access and water resiliency, and it's absolutely critical to our residents. It's critical to our ability to grow our economy and grow our city. I think one of our differentiating strengths in Cleveland is being on a Great Lake and being on a major river, and the access to that fresh water. And so I think preserving that, increasing access to it is absolutely critical in so many ways to our long-term planning.
So you have to, it's not a choice.
Not a choice.
Is it same thing in La Crosse? So are you able to integrate it into long-term planning?
Yeah, we are. And actually, we've just finished a climate action plan, well, last year, I guess, and 281 strategies that takes us forward for the next 40, 50 years. And so when we're talking about resilience planning, I absolutely agree that we all need to be doing that type of thing. My community has the luxury of being able to commit some resources to accomplish a planning process like that. Not every community does. They're putting out fires. And we have to acknowledge that that is one of the challenges that we face, that we have communities that are living on the edge of the abyss. And we have communities that are, and it's obviously we face challenges as well in La Crosse, Wisconsin, but it's significantly fewer challenges than our friends farther down the Mississippi River corridor face. So it's absolutely essential that, yes, absolutely, we have a planning document that helps us look at adaptations and resiliency efforts down the road multiple decades ahead, with the recognition that not every community has that ability. And so we cannot emphasize enough the need to work cooperatively and collaboratively with those on a subnational level, federal level, whatever it is. We need to be able to work together. And it's interesting, even on an international level. And I'm going to go global here for just a minute. We just today, our group MRCTI signed an MOU with the Indian government for them to basically, for us to, essentially share ideas, share best practices across continents. And we're looking forward to exchange of ideas and sharing plans so that what we're doing on the Mississippi River corridor can be utilized throughout the entire nation of India. It's all their rivers. We have that one corridor that we represent, but the Indian government is they're looking at all of their rivers. So I'm really excited about that. And honestly, that is the future. The future is all of us working together and modeling our best practices and being able to translate those across the globe.
Thank you. I don't know if there's any question from the floor. Otherwise, maybe I'd like to ask you in terms of last thought about, so we're at COP28. Is water resilience a strong enough topic? Have you learned something? Is there anything you will go back home with in terms of the importance of the topic, or not enough, or new technology? So what are you coming back home with?
My guess is I'm going to come back home with Martin's business card. Because he's already tried to sell me on something. So I'm relatively certain at some point that he's going to give me a call.
Very good. Very good.
You're right. It's part of the job, huh?
But Martin, what about you? So you're involved in water on a day-to-day basis. What have you seen here at COP28?
Well, we see here a growing recognition that the climate crisis is a water crisis. You said that numerous times, Stephanie. I thank you for that. But it needs more recognition for sure. In our province, Quebec, for example, our asset is seen as hydroelectricity, but in fact it's water. The asset is water. The result is hydroelectricity. Without water, there's no hydroelectricity, of course. And we're looking at the battery transition, electrifying, and it will need water to produce the battery out of the critical elements that and all the processes that come with it. And then the companies that will produce those batteries will have to deal with their residues. And their residues are aqueous. They're water as well. And we cannot afford to lose all that water to non-renewable down the river, and there you go to the ocean. That's not the way to go. So it needs to be recuperated. It needs to be a healthy cycle. So we see a lot of that, but we have more to do. And but I'm glad that it's clearly recognized. But of course, it's never ended. Huh?
What about you, Stephanie? Do you see it as an increasing topic from what you've witnessed this week?
To be honest, I went to many sessions on energy, and there was a lot of link with water. That came my concern, because increasing energy has a direct impact, like Martin said. So maybe I didn't go to the right session. I was very interesting on energy, but the link to the water concerned me, because the water for me is really at the heart of everything. And we discuss a lot about this energy transition that will impact water, and impacting water, the residual can be different. So that is something we need to really think about.
Just not to cut you off, but 90% of the cost of climate adaptation today is water related. 90. So flood events, drought, name it, it's always that. So I mean, you can't forget about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Jeffrey?
I was just going to add, I also have not really been to sessions focused on water. I'm sure they exist, but I've been doing a lot of thinking with our team just on the commonality, particularly around the Great Lakes, which is, as I said earlier, 20% of the world's fresh water supply, and the challenges that we all face, common challenges in Canada and the United States on water resiliency, water quality, leveraging those Great Lakes. And I think there are a lot of rich content and discussion that we could share, not just within the Great Lakes region, but with other freshwater regions around the world as we think about the issues you talked about here today.
Thank you so much. So thank you for being here. I think a growing topic. So let's hope next year we discuss again together, and it's looking forward that it's an even more important topic at the next COP. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.